Welcome to Fear Less, Do More. Today's guest is Anthony Hutton from Never Throw in the Towel project.
It was just constantly in my head thinking, is this it? I didn't have any education. Going to university wasn't an option. I didn't have a trade. I wanted to change things up. I wanted more. What if I get on Big Brother? That could change things up. So I basically said, hi, my name's Anthony, I'm from Newcastle. I'm also a 70s disco dancer called Chico Importante. And the guy stuck it on me straight away, went, dance for me. So I just started dancing like John Travolta. And I said, can I be a speaker? And she said, are you a speaker? And I went, no. I said, but I do want to speak. What do you want your talk to be called? Said the talk's going to be called Never Throw in the Towel. Couldn't believe the impact of that.
Hi Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. It's delightful to have you here. People watching may think, I recognise that fella from something. So let's talk about that first, because that's just really the start of your story in a lot of ways. So you were on Big Brother, Series 5?
Series 6,
Series 6?
2005.
Right, okay. So still quite in the early days of Big Brother, when it wasn't all about I want to be famous. It was still a social experiment, is my observation of it. What on earth made you want to go on that?
It was a number of things, really. One, I was a huge fan of the show. I remember watching the very first one with Craig. Yeah. And at the time, it was like my first girlfriend, and we were hooked. And
as was everybody, I think.
Yeah. It was that. There was that Nasty Nick and Craig. For me, that was TV gold. And so from then I was always a fan. And then we touched on camera about, so all my life from a young lad, I was obsessed with trying to be a footballer. Literally was the most dedicated kid you've ever seen, was just obsessed with trying to be a footballer. Always struggled academically, had zero interest in academics, and deludedly thought I was going to be a footballer. I just thought I'm going to make it. And like most people with that dream didn't come off. So it basically got to the point where I was had to sign on the door, and felt like a loser, because I haven't made it I didn't make it as a footballer. And the first job that remotely sounded okay to me was a postman. Done that job, and it wasn't for me. I just, getting up, had to start work at 5 a.m. And I thought being a postman was just, you went and collected your letters and then you went on a walk. But no, you had to get in, sort out all of your letters and then go out on your walk. And basically it just got to the point where I was just like, there was a guy who I worked with, a lovely fella called Brian, and he'd worked there for like 25 years or something. And it was just constantly in my head thinking, is this it? Yeah. And that didn't sit well with me. But I didn't have any education. Going to university wasn't an option. I didn't have a trade. And I wanted to change things up in my life. I wanted something different. I wanted more. And the realization of me changing, I thought, what if I get on Big Brother? That could change things up.
Quite a radical sort of approach to it.
Yeah. Well, in reflection, I think I've always been slightly, I don't know, you could call it deluded, or it's just my mindset, really. And the obsession that was there with being a footballer, that started going into play to be on Big Brother. And I remember setting off at 3:30 in the morning, drive to Manchester, because I knew that's where the auditions were. And I wasn't there to play games. I was there to get on. And I think that mindset, that mentality helped me get on the show, and ended up getting on the show. And again, coming from a very much a sporting background, was always excelled in sports and was always loved sports, that mentality of wanting to win the show.
Competitiveness and drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I was specifically like hung up on the result.
What was the interview for? I mean, how do you interview for something like Big Brother?
It was, so you turned up and you literally had to queue, and there was literally thousands.
Oh, so there was no pre-application. You just
No,
turn up.
you just turned up, and there was it was a massive cut-off point. So people were getting to the front of the queue, and they were seeing basically producers, and then you got asked, tell us your name, tell us something interesting about yourself. So I turned luckily enough, on the side, as I'd quit the post office job at this point, and I was a 70s disco dancer called Chico Importante, was my stage name.
Brilliant.
So I basically said, hi, my name's Anthony, I'm from Newcastle. I'm also a 70s disco dancer called Chico Importante. And the guy stuck it on me straight away, went, dance for me. So I just started dancing like John Travolta. And then I got a phone call. And it was 2.5 weeks before the show started.
Right.
And they basically, withheld number, answered the phone, and they basically said, it's Big Brother, we want to see you tomorrow in London. Had to get the train, met in a random location. They came and got me, and I'd done an interview down Camera Lens. Then the next day, they wanted to come and see my friends and family. This was on the Thursday. This was perfect because I was actually doing the 70s dancing show in Whitley Bay on the Thursday night. So the producer came and watched the show, and I think that might have sealed the deal.
And what was your strap line of Chico?
Face of Colgate, 1977, teeth of whiteness, arse of tightness.
That's the clincher, isn't it? Got to have that on Big Brother.
So then got told I was on the show. On the Friday, I'll never forget that moment. It was like, you're going to be a housemate. The Saturday, you've got to meet in London again at a random location. On the Saturday, a chaperone met me, and I got hidden in France for 2 weeks before the show even started.
Is this just to stop the press getting hold of it in advance?
Yeah. So I think at the time they were very hung up on, they wanted to keep who the housemates were as a surprise, as a massive reveal. Crazy
and how did
experience.
you feel that day when you walked through the doors? How does that feel? Were you scared? Were you nervous? Were you excited? What was the?
All of them that you've mentioned. The adrenaline that I felt that moment of coming out of the car and walking down the aisle to fans and going into this mythical, iconic Big Brother house. I'll never forget that moment. It was so surreal. And then to win the show, when there was me, Eugene, the guy who I was in the final, and then Davina McCall was going to announce who the winner was. Honestly, that was just a mind-blowing experience. Mind-blowing.
And during the time you were in, how long are you in again? I can't remember how long it is now. Is it like
so back
4 or
then
5
it was
weeks?
a really long process. So I was in there for 78 days,
Right.
just under 3 months.
Yeah,
And
it's a long time.
And back then, I don't know what it's like now, because I've spoke to like people who've done Love Island. They're getting haircuts, they're having breaks, they're having a bit of time out. We had none of that. We were literally cooked up in that house, and I didn't speak to any producers. I only spoke to people who were the housemates. So it was very organic and very real.
And very intense.
Cooked up in that house.
So when you won, when your sort of name was announced, what did the future look like to you at that point in time? What were you thinking?
I was single, so I was thinking, if I was honest, I thought this is going to be all right for the female attention. if I'm totally honest, and I just thought, this is going to be unbelievable. This is going to be what an experience. I was a little bit like naive to it all, how much my life was going to change. To be honest, I didn't think too much about it. Maybe I was just a bit daft.
It was early days for reality TV though, wasn't it? It wasn't like it is now where you say we got Love Island and Folk in the Jungle and all of those things all going on.
Yeah. So I didn't I always used to go to Whitley Bay Bank Holiday. Anyone who's in that my age bracket will know how good Whitley Bay was. So I remember thinking I'd timed it where I was going to be able to go to the bank holiday, the August bank holiday at Whitley Bay. So I was thinking, I'll get, people will recognise me. And so I actually went, and it was absolute wild. I actually had to jump in a random's car at the traffic lights to get away because I just got swarmed that much. In reflection, and I always say this, it was such an extreme taste of fame that I got because although I'd done the 70s disco dancing and all that, but I was still just a run-of-the-mill lad who, lived with his grandparents and my mum. Then I got cooked up, was living in a house for nearly 3 months, came out to fireworks and everyone knowing my name. I just won £50,000. The next day was equally as crazy. On the morning I had to meet round about 6-7 agents. I'd signed with an agent and that day signed a £200,000 OK photo shoot. And I remember, I was with my mum when this happened, and it was just like, wow, this is crazy.
Bit different to being a postie. So at that point in time, all exciting, bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Bit like, whoa. But it didn't go as people would imagine it would go. And actually you found the darker side of fame and the darker side of what it's like to be in the public spotlight all the time. Can you tell us a bit about what that was like?
So to be honest, the fame, the money, I was cool with that. In fact, I enjoyed it. It was more of the aftermath of when it died off, when there was no money coming in. That was the problem. So it started, year by year, it basically started to dwindle in terms of the fame and the money. The hardest part that I found was the realization of I've got to get a normal job. Because I say the same thing, it's because, this is the answer. The ego, the pride, the paranoia of what people would think of me, I'd cooked up in my head that I'll be a laughingstock, that I'll get laughed at if I have to go and get a normal job, because my identity was very much tied in with that's him from Big Brother. That's Anthony who's won Big Brother. So I thought I can't get a normal job, and that was the big factor. I was terrified, and that started basically getting really down, really depressed, and no money was coming in, and then it got to the point where I'd missed 5 mortgage payments of the house that I'd bought with the winnings, and I basically my headspace was like, because I've always been driven and wanted to be successful in some way, shape, or form. Like, I think people who are like that, they probably take losses badly. So I just basically I thought, how the hell have I managed to single-handedly get so much fame and so much money now to the point where I'm a complete loser? I was like, in my late 20s, all of my core school friends, they'd moved on to have the careers, the kids, whereas I was gallivanting around basically still an immature. I had no direction. Like most blokes, I'd turned to alcohol, I'd turned to drugs, to basically, in reflection, trying to escape how shit I was feeling. And got into a really bad headspace from that, really. But I share that now with the project that I've got now, is all them losses, would I change them? Absolutely not.
So no regrets?
Absolutely no regrets. They're all lessons, and they've all shaped me. And the message that I always try to push out, I share this now in public speaking, is like, nothing lasts forever. That's including the bad times.
So where do you find that strength? Where do you, faced with that real fear of losing everything that you've sort of built your life around disappearing, how do you pick yourself up from that? How did you turn everything around?
You know what? I don't fully know where I got that from. I don't think I got that like installed in me from my family, but what I did get from my family was like unbelievable love, unbelievable support. So with that, I think good things happen, and just my mentality and mindset of you can't give up. You which way are you going to go? Are you going to it got to the point where it was like I was in such a terrible headspace. So I got forced into having to. You're gonna have to change something here. You're gonna have to change, and this is something that I'm so passionate about. I've got a slide on this when I do speaking. Is you've got to, if you're not in a good headspace or you're not in a good place, you are the one who has to take action, and a lot of the time you have to change things up. My change up was, I'm hanging around with a bad crowd here. I need a fresh start. I actually literally moved away into Darlington, where I live now. I had to cut people off who I was acquaintances, and I need to dust my ego off and dust myself off, and I'm gonna have to get a normal job here. I need to get some form of direction in my life, and I need to start making some money. You're gonna have to swallow your pride, swallow your ego. That first job that I got turned out to be one of the best moves I ever made. I actually met my now wife, who I've got 2 lovely sons too. And then slowly but surely, because I was making right steps and change, my life started to build momentum again, and good things started to happen.
So what was that first job? I take it you didn't go back to the
post
post
office. I got back into so and I thought, what do I want to do? What am I interested in? And I always loved getting my hair cut. And then I remember going into Tony and Guy, because I was a football lad. Like being a hairdresser was like, it was associated with women, and it was associated with like gay men. And back then it was like, will I, get laughed at and all that and stuff like that. But always like loved the hair industry. And I always remember watching the Salon. It was on Channel 4. Again, I was just so fascinated with it. And I remember just thinking, I think I want to be a hairdresser, and started actively trying to look how to get into the hair industry, and then found a course with Saks. They were doing basically a hairdressing course, and got into it and immediately fell in love with the hair industry. So I got the first job as, again, working in the hair industry, but I had to retrain. I wasn't fully qualified and stuff, so I was sweeping floors, and I was really starting from scratch again. But I knew, I was like, you know what, I'm restarting here. But I knew I was making the right steps, and I just thought, I was kind of lucky. I felt lucky to be alive. I'll never forget them moments in my life, because they're just key roles to where I'm at today, really.
And it sounds like you're the sort of person where if you are focused on something and you enjoy it, or you think that it's the thing for you, that becomes your sole focus. So you've obviously got this internal drive that takes you through, whether it's football, getting onto Big Brother, or barbering. Yeah. All of them have become a passion and a focus. Yeah,
I've massively got that. Like ADHD, I don't know, I've never been tested for it, but I pretty much like tick all the boxes when I run through them.
Hyperfixation once
the hyper-focus is very extreme on my end.
But has a real positive, because it means you actually get the best out of whatever.
Yeah, so I always say I've took the positives out of them traits, and I think you can really, really capitalise on them traits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, my children are both both ADHD. And the worst thing is when they tell people that, and people go, "Oh, I'm really sorry."
Oh yeah.
But it's like, no, there's
Oh no,
nothing
it's
to be sorry
fantastic.
about. There's some real positives to be had.
It's
I can do
fantastic.
things you can't do.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, sometimes my wife might disagree with you based on how messy I am and stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, there's nothing I would change, because if you channel it in the right direction, honestly, believe me, you can achieve some really good things.
And you have.
Fear Less, Do More is brought to you by the team at Square One Law. If you're enjoying this episode, hit follow or subscribe. It really helps us out, and it means that you won't miss out on any future episodes. We have some great fearless guests that leave you feeling really inspired. And if you think someone else would enjoy it too, feel free to pass it on, whether that's a mate, a colleague, or someone in your network. Thanks for listening. Now back to the conversation.
Honestly, believe me, you can achieve some really good things.
And you have that experience of getting into a career again. That was something you were passionate about, although you were sort of nervous about whether you're going to fit in, all of that. From that, you've developed something else, which is a real positive impact around in what you do. So tell us about where you've taken the barbering to.
Yeah, so the Never Throw on the Towel project.
Yes.
Yeah, so this has been an absolute fantastic journey. So it actually starts from being in the hair industry. So got into the hair industry, and then when it started steering into basically being a barber, because I loved the male styling of it. Then I just started discovering it's almost like a therapy session, and because I'd had my struggles, some real struggles of adversity from the Big Brother stuff, and then I'd come into the hair industry, and then people started talking about their struggles. I had this huge passion of empathy and just willing of, I can help here, because honestly, mate, I've been there. So I became very much fascinated with that role of the barber, in my role in that. Then, so this whole journey has, for me, feels like fate for me, because my grandma, so I had the most special relationship with this woman. Like, my grandma brought, it's mum and dad, mine was mum and gran. My grandma was my dinner lady at school. We literally lived next door to the school. So I would see my grandma all the time. She never ever missed anything. Fun fact, back when I was on Big Brother back in 2005, to win the show, you had to pick up the phone and vote. Granny Hutton racked up a £4,000 phone bill inside a week to get me to win the show.
Bless.
She always had my back. And the project's called Never Throw on the Towel, strapline, keep on living. And those were the words that I used right at the end of my grandma's eulogy when she passed away. And I used those words when my grandma passed away. Like, I literally held a hand on her very, very last breath. And when there was conversations about organising the funeral and who's going to do the eulogy, again, my mindset, my mentality is, I never shy away from anything. And you face, if for me, this is called fearless, you face the fear. And I was like, I'm going to do the eulogy. And when I came right at the end of her eulogy, I literally locked myself away for days on end, because I was obsessed with it, that type of focus. I was like, she's going to get the best send-off she possibly can have. And when I came right at the end, it was almost like I'd been on this journey writing it for days on end. And I was like, this story's not ending on a bad. This story's going to end on a positive. And I used the words she never threw in the towel, because that was describing her fighting spirit towards getting stage 4 cancer. So my gran got stage 4 cancer in 2014, and she literally fought all the way through till 2022. And with that, she got to meet my first son, which I was like, I really wanted that to happen. And she did. And like, just her mentality towards getting cancer was just so inspiring. She like was endlessly doing research on nutrition. She'd completely changed her nutrition to like plant-based. She was juicing, and she had a huge faith in God. Like, so every single day of my life, every single day that I said goodbye to that woman, she rubbed holy water on my forehead and I gave her a kiss. She was very religious, and I used the words never throw in the towel, and she'd done everything she possibly could to keep on living. And straight after the funeral, I was stood outside the church, and this man who I'd never met before, who attended the funeral, he came up to me in floods of tears, and he grabbed my hand, and he said, thank you so much for that eulogy. And I was like, all right, yeah, cheers, mate, cheers for that. But I could feel there's some form of connection. And then, so throughout the day, throughout the funeral, because I was really hung up on giving her a great send-off, I tried to keep my emotions under wraps to just deliver our stories as best as possibly could. So on the night when I was at my grandma's house, all of them emotions came out. And then my phone pinged, and it was a message request. And I never really normally open message requests because I don't see them, but some reason I seen it. So I opened it up, and it was the same gentleman who had spoke to me outside the church, and he sent me this big long message of telling us how much he's struggling with his headspace, with his mental health. He's in a really, really dark place. He's been seeing professional help, and he says, I've got to let you know, I'm clinging on to those words, never throw in the towel. And I was just like, wow, that's really hit me, and I couldn't stop thinking about that message. And then something triggered in my head because of my experience, my own struggles, and because my role as a barber, talking to men for a living, seeing men struggling. Something just came in my head, but I thought I'm going to start talking about this, and literally actively started trying to talk in public about it. And coincidentally, some woman called Holly Matthews, who we'd done pantomime years and years ago, she got in touch with me, and I hadn't been in touch with her for years. And she went, listen, she sent us a message. She said, listen, I'm doing an event in Newcastle. It's called the Happy Me Project. I'd love you to be a part of it. Would you be on the panel? Because you obviously you've been on Big Brother, and I think she was wanting me to be on it more so just because I've been on Big Brother, and it would maybe assist the event and stuff, and maybe talk about my Big Brother experiences. And I said to her, what is it like? Tell me about it. And she basically said, primarily it's a speaking. We've got a lot of guest speakers. And I said, can I be a speaker? And she said, all right, I didn't mean, are you a speaker? And I went, no. I said, but I do want to speak. Anyway, so she rang me up. She went, right, Anthony, I'm gonna book you as a speaker. What do you want your talk to be called? Said the talk's gonna be called Never Throw in the Towel. Couldn't believe the impact of that. I had two men come up to me straight after and give me a hug. And then so many people who'd attended, so many people were reaching out. And what it highlighted to me was the power of a story. Because in reflection back then, I unintentionally helped a man in attendance of that funeral with a story. And this was so timely, so I thought, I'm going to continue the story. So November approached, so I thought, I'm going to do the Never Throw in the Towel project. And that consisted of two things. First thing was free haircuts. Throughout November, I put a post out saying, barber chair is one of the best places for men to talk. If anyone's struggling and they want to come and have a free haircut and a chat, come and see me. The second thing was my love for the outdoors and nature. I decided to do a free man's retreat. Consisted of a walk and talk. We'd done some boxing, some breath work, and the breath work prepared us for the cold water dip. And there was 7 men attended that day, and it was kind of meant to be a one-off because it was for November, the month of men's mental health. And then on the night, there was a guy called Craig who attended, and he sent me a message. He said, listen, he said, you need to keep this going. He says, today was unbelievable. He went, there's some lads today who've needed that. So me and him met for a coffee. We said, let's do another one. The second one had 31 men attend, jumped from 7. And it was unbelievable. And right at the end of the 31 attended, there was a video captured of us all dunking in the water. And we came out and there was screams of euphoric hugs. Just, it looked epic. And we put that on socials and that kind of blew up. And then ITV, Chinese News, had seen that and they said, can we come to the next one? Third one had 72 men attend. It absolutely, completely blew up. And everyone thought we were a charity. And we weren't. We had to we were trying to get money for boxing gloves. It was but then that sparked the idea of what if we become a charity? What if we have ambassadors doing what I do, taking them all over? So that's what we're in the process of doing. And then I had this idea of, what if I go into organisations and I'll do that talk and then I'll have a pop-up barber chair straight after. And and again, I was like, is it a good idea? I've always been full of ideas. And I pitched the idea to a client who had a factory, BTS, a guy called Phil Atkinson, shout out. I told him my idea and he was like, I think that's a cracking idea. Went and done it. And it just worked great. Couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this concept worked fantastic. So many blokes have really opened up here.
And so when you do a retreat or something like that, I would imagine when it's something very alien for men to show that level of vulnerability. So when you first get them together, does it take a while for everybody to sort of drop their guard a bit?
Yeah.
Or are people ready for it?
The thing is, right, firstly, nothing's forced. But this is a bit of advice that I give, is some people find this process of this hard, especially if they're talking about the struggles.
Yeah. Go
on a 2-hour walk. You will start talking, especially out in a scenic nature. And a lot of people, we don't just talk about mental health. Sometimes them conversations happen, but just getting outside in nature, doing exercise, moving. Sometimes that's what just people want. Some people don't necessarily have mental health, they just want to keep on top of the physical health. Or sometimes someone will start opening up to us. It's quite laid back, but fundamentally, just go on a walk and talking will happen.
And it's something so simple, as you say, but it's quite interesting because women are very, in my experience, women are very supportive of each other. Women are happy to be vulnerable, and they get their friends together and they'll share all their problems and try and solve them together. Men have a sort of different socialisation because they've been brought up not to be these strong, resilient characters. We're not, nothing bothers us, and show a bit of weakness and all your mates will take the mick, all of that sort of stuff. But what you've managed to unlock is something quite special, because a lot of men probably didn't even realise they needed that. So I bet it's been a bit of surprise to some people how vulnerable they've been able to be in that circumstance.
Yeah. The thing is, what people need to realise, and this is what I've found, actually showing vulnerability, actually showing weakness, actually is a huge strength.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's something that I got realised, where I wasn't too sure. People going, oh, like, thanks for that. Thanks for that. And that's it's just, one of the main aims for the project is trying to change culture. You got the Northeast construction. Northeast for years, I don't know how many years off the trot, but it's ranked worst region in the UK for suicide. Construction for years ranked the worst profession in the UK for suicide. Man's man, man up, man of the house, proper bloke. There's list goes on. To a certain extent, it will always be there. And this is why initiatives like mine, another place, Andy's Man Clubs, we're actually trying to create spaces to nudge conversations if you're struggling. And this is a quote I always use, and this was in my son's book, and I was like, wow, asking for help isn't giving up. Asking for help is refusing to give up. And it's just, there definitely has to be change, because it's man's biggest killer. So we definitely have to try and do something in changing the culture around talking. So
if money was no object, and you had all the connections that you needed to make it happen, what would sort of the end goal be? Where would you like to get to?
The goal is to try and get these free retreats, dart them all over the place, so people they've got free access to be in a community and get outside and just get out in nature, doing walks and talks and doing a bit of boxing or a bit of just moving. And cold water's not for everyone, I get that, but there's magic in cold water. That absolutely is.
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah. So that's the goal. That's the goal, really, for that. In terms of I've got into somehow have become a keynote speaker, and that I've become very driven with that. I've spoken at some amazing places. The obsessive, hyper focus, competitive, driven part of me wants to stand on that red circle of doing a TEDx talk. And I say this not to be, I really do, I hope not to be cocky or anything, but I believe if you really want to do something, if you really want to do it and you're really passionate about it, you'll do it. So I know I'll end up on that red circle and speaking at a TEDx talk, and that's, so they're the two things that I want to do.
Okay. And you've got two boys yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think your experiences and also the people that you're meeting and the positive impact that you're having there, do you think that has changed the way that you will parent your boys?
So I've never ever spoke to my dad, ever. But I think that's, for me, I've took positives from that, because I've always really wanted to be the best dad I possibly could be. And I think that I really did want boys. I did, my missus would maybe like a girl now, but I really, really wanted boys. And I think that the core of it was probably, I didn't have a relationship with my dad. sometimes like I question myself about, I've opened a can of worms of myself about me previous life experiences. Like, you know, I've spoke about alcohol and drugs, and I kind of rip myself to shreds, really. Sometimes I, like, when I have them negative thoughts of like, God, I hope me sons, like, they're proud of me. I hope they don't think bad of like, well, look what Dad used to do. But fundamentally, I know I'm doing good, and I'm trying to do good, and I'll have the relationship. I'd like to create a relationship and a culture where men or males can talk a bit more, and if they are struggling, is to speak. And I'm going to try to have a relationship with my kids where they always tell me everything. You know, there probably will be stuff that they don't tell me.
You know what I mean? I believe you me, there will be some stuff that you wish that they hadn't told you.
Yeah, but you know, for me, trying to be a good dad, the thing that I care about most in life is just being a good dad.
I'm sure you will be. And you've also got a podcast.
Yeah.
Fellow podcaster.
Yeah.
So what got you into that?
So always loved podcasts, and always thought, I wouldn't mind doing a podcast, but there was never any like core reason to do one. But then the Never Throw in the Towel project happened, and then we just thought, how cool would it be if we'd done a podcast of storytelling of people who've had to show resilience, and getting men to talk and open up. We can get that to such a wide audience if we have a podcast. So the project totally lent itself to doing a podcast, and because of the subject and the importance of the subject, we've managed to get like some really like high profile guests. So yeah, that's been it's been really powerful, and it's been a lot of fun as well.
I think that's really positive, isn't it? That people are so up for doing that. That to me shows that the dial's changing.
Yeah.
That things are changing. It is becoming much more acceptable for men to show vulnerability, which has got to be a good thing. So if Granny Hutton was here now, your guiding light all the way through life, what do you think she would be saying to you now?
I mean, my grandpa thought the sun shone out of my arse of tightness. Yeah, my grandma she was just so supportive. She was always so proud of me for everything that I'd done, really. So she would just be ridiculously proud. But it's great. I've helped people, or I'm helping people, but actually in turn it's helping me. So when I go and do talks, I do this all the time now. Like, I'm going into the most random places, like Amazon. I've spoken at St. James's Park. There's a video of my grandma on my slide, that talking and stuff, and I'm just, so for me, I've still got Granny Hutton with me all the time, because I'm always talking about her. So like, yeah, it's been that's the great thing about it. It's like my granny's, still here really for me. She's still got me back. She's still literally with me every time I go to work on a slideshow. So it's great.
I mean, that's a lovely way to end. Thanks for sharing your story. I'm so pleased that you are sharing your story, because there are too many people still who won't show that vulnerability. And I think what you've demonstrated is the power that vulnerability has. And like you say, it's absolutely a strength, not a weakness. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the hyperfocus takes you next. Yeah. And hoping it all goes from strength to strength. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fear Less, Do More, brought to you by Square One Law. If you found today's conversation inspiring or interesting, we've added a recommendation for what to listen to next. That's either on the screen now or in the show notes. Take care, and we'll see you next time.